Hello and welcome back, friends. This is Jami McQuivey, and this is Gallbladder Gone. Now what? So let me ask you something. Are you living like it's summer? I was having a conversation with my students about this, and things don't change. They continue doing their same schedule. So while your body is begging for you to slow down for winter, are you just pushing through? Because most people are, and it's wrecking their digestion, their hormones, and their energy. So winter is not a season to push harder, to diet harder, to quote, start fresh. It is a season where your body is designed to repair, restore, and rebuild. So if you're getting sick already, if you're bloated, inflamed, tired, or feeling stuck, maybe the real problem isn't you. Maybe you're just living out of rhythm. And I want to teach you about that. So today we're diving into the God design inside our bodies, your body. And yes, the internal rhythms of your biology and your Bible both point to these things. So I'm sharing a story, a scripture that will hopefully help reframe everything for you. The science behind seasonal digestion and 3 winter practices that calm your gut, reset your hormones, and prepare you for real transformation when the time is right. So, this episode is especially for you if you don't have a gallbladder, but actually, it's for everybody who's tired of trying harder when what they really need is a system and a season to finally heal. So, let's get into this.
Gallbladder gone. Now what? Let's heal from the inside out.
Welcome to Gallbladder Gone. Now what? The podcast for Christian women navigating life after gallbladder removal. Hosted by Jami McQuivey, holistic nutritionist, wife, boy mum, grandma, and a firm believer in God's design for lasting health. Did you know that over 1.2 million Americans have their gallbladders removed every year, and that the majority of them are women? Even more eye-opening is that all gallbladder issues are digestive issues. And poor digestion is at the root of up to 80% of all disease, including hormone imbalances and weight struggles. While Jami isn't a doctor and this podcast isn't medical advice, she shares real solutions rooted in research, experience, and God's Word. Let's get practical, biblical, and real, one step at a time.
So, I want to start with one of my favorite scriptures, and it's quoted everywhere, even songs have been done about it. So, it's in Ecclesiastes 3. And a lot of people quote just a little bit of it. So I'm going to quote the whole thing. I'm going to read you the whole thing because I think it's incredibly powerful. So there is a time and there's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. So people usually stop there. But it goes on to list these things. So, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. And then it goes on to say, what do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. And I love this little piece here. This is verse 11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. How amazing is that? There's such spiritual truth here. God designs cycles. That's how it works. There's cycles and rhythms and patterns. And I believe that one of the gifts he's given me is to see these patterns and to see these cycles and to seek after them. I love principles and I love promises. And so in these, He has given us times of sowing, times of resting, times to harvest. Our bodies are created with these amazing seasons too. They're meant to adapt within these seasons. And when we honor them, we flourish. And when we fight them, we suffer. And that is why when I created the 7 principles to heal digestion, they're cyclical in nature. And when we talk about hormones, we have to understand the patterns, right? And so when in this program is all about systems and patterns, and then you can revisit them when the time changes. So you may be listening in the season of spring, and then you can re-listen in the season of summer because it shifts, and therefore you can shift with it. And it's just this amazing system. So I want to tell you a story. I want to start off with a story that Dr. Suhas tells in his book called Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. It's a story of wildlife biologists, and they have observed that there's a mismatch. When there's a mismatch in nature, bad things can happen. So, in winter, wild deer eat very fibrous, woody foods, twigs, buds, barks, all the hard stuff, right? Their digestion and gut microbes shift so that they can survive on that poor quality foraging. So they're just designed to do that. So along come well-meaning people, and they started leaving out rich feed for them, corn and grain and all these beautiful things, right? Thinking that they're doing something wonderful and that will help benefit the deer. So the deer, of course, love this stuff. So they eat it eagerly. And what they noticed is that they were dying. All these deer were dying. Not because the food itself was poison. I mean, it was delicious corn, grain, sweet feed, all of that stuff. But because their digestion was in winter mode and their rumen and that microbial community couldn't process that sudden high carb diet. And so that rapid dietary shift produced acids and toxins in their guts, and it led to acidosis and enterotoxemia. So it made them really, really sick. So this is, of course, an extreme example, but it teaches the simple lesson that the right thing at the wrong time can still hurt someone, hurt something, right? So I'm sure you've heard me talk about this and in other ways in other episodes, but we're going to do this. We're going to kind of break it down a little bit for winter and as we're really coming into winter. So I know that it sounds dramatic, and I hope it is because it's a memorable story. And I remembered it from years and years ago reading this book. So it is not just about the deer. So humans also have these biological seasons. So we have circadian rhythms that are happening every 24 hours, right? For women, we have infradian rhythms, which is every 28 days. And these can change our digestion. They change the hormone release, the microbiome behavior, and metabolic priorities across the day, month, and year. Now, this isn't meant to be, oh my gosh, how do I know what to eat, when to eat, how to eat it, and we get overwhelmed. And this is why I feel like this system, having a system in place to go back and visit and videos and downloads and things all in one place is important because it's not um so challenging once you understand the principle. And that's what I'm here to help you understand is the principle. So when we have things like when we're feeding our body as if it's summer, right? We're having heavy late night dinners, cold smoothies, a lot of sweet stuff. It starts to create this mismatch in our bodies. And over time, this mismatch starts to show up as in digestive troubles and that hormone imbalance, poor sleep, the weight we can't seem to shed. So science shows us over and over and over gut physiology and microbes follow daily season and seasonal rhythms. And the timing of eating and what we're eating is a powerful cue. And really, all it means is we just need to start paying attention. For centuries, we were taught these things. We lived with the seasons. We lived mostly outdoors. We were outside. We had things in place in cultures, especially for women, around their cycle for this healthy movement and pattern. But we don't have that anymore. So we're just relearning this. So it may feel like there's a big learning curve, but once you get it, oh, it's so wonderful. In fact, my daughter-in-law was here and she was having her period and it was horrible and she was feeling sick and awful and she just said, "Oh, I hate being a woman. I hate having my period." And I said, "Oh no, sweetie, once you can balance your hormones and understand what's actually happening, it's such you're having a period and having a cycle is such a powerful and beautiful part of the woman's experience. We actually, our brains operate differently. We get more creative. We think deeper. We make connections other people can't make. And so this is all in my hormone classes. But there's so much beauty to be had. We don't need to live in pain. And actually, it was interesting because then I started my period a day later. And I told her, and she's like, "You're not in pain, you're not hurting, you're not frustrated, you're not upset." I said, "No, in fact, I'm going to go sit and relax and I'm going to nurture myself. I might take a hot bath, I'm going to have some herbal tea." And I just really step into embracing that part about me. And so let's get back. So when we're coming up here in this holiday season and we're going to kind of end it in this January 1st, this new year new me, this season of crash dietings and intense workouts. But I'm here to tell you, don't do this. January 1st falls in deep winter, and that is not the seasons for our bodies to naturally choose detoxification, or weight loss. So that's why the failure rate is so incredible. But it's not because of your lack of willpower. We are literally fighting our human design. So, what can we do? And we'll talk about that. So, instead, winter is often a season for that repair and the consolidation and gentle nourishment. So, in spring, you can bloom in spring. Spring is that time of detoxification, of weight loss, of remineralization. And so what we want to use winter for is that nourishing, that rebuilding, all of those beautiful things. So if you want real sustainable weight loss and it to be practical, I want you to consider using winter to fix your digestion. It's going to help you stabilize your blood sugar, rebalance the gut, rest your hormones, and reset systems so that you can lose weight naturally, easily, and effectively in spring. So this is not avoidance. This is wisdom. And I know so many women who've like, "I've just given up on it. I don't even make New Year's resolutions." I don't believe in that. I believe that we always should look toward a new year with new purpose and new focus. But if we've given up because we fail every time because we're going against our natural rhythms. And so when you step into that natural rhythm, all of a sudden your surroundings and the environment and internally all start to work together and you start having success. And especially when we yoke with God and yoke with his patterns and his systems. And so this is where it's going to be really important. So here's the honest truth. You really don't need more information. You have so much information. If you're anything like me, you're watching the videos, you're reading the books, you're doing the things. You don't need another diet plan. What you need is a system, a rhythmic system that supports our bodies and replaces that willpower with structure or with systems or little tweaks here and there. So that is what I am passionate about. And what my work creates is these simple systems that adjust to seasonal physiology. So you don't have to muscle through every choice. It becomes intuitive. It becomes simple, not always easy, but it becomes simple. And so this is the gentle invitation, not a harsh command. So if you're not failing, you're not depleted. Okay. So I'm sorry, you're not failing if you're depleted. You just need a different approach. All right. So let's discuss this. So for healthy digestion in winter, we can apply the 7 core principles differently. So in my program, 7 principles to heal digestion, manage weight, and balance hormones, there are 7 core principles. And again, they're a system, they're not rules. And so when we learn about them, and we're going to talk about 3 today and how to adjust them for winter. So we're going to focus on the second principle, which is balanced hydration. We're going to talk about the fourth principle, which is food and fasting. And we're talking about the fifth principle, which is rest and movement. And so I'll go through each and give a little bit of the science and some practical tips, including guidance for those without a gallbladder and or poor digestion. So the first principle, balanced hydration. So a lot of people just think, oh, drink more water. And if you watched my or listen to my structured water podcast, we know that that's not true. We actually need more than just water. But for this purpose in the winter, I want you to favor warm liquids. So there's science behind this, shows that the temperature of liquids can change gastric emptying and motility. So warm drinks more often encourage that wonderful, comfortable digestion and that parasympathetic, so that rest and digest relaxation. So for many people, warm beverages increase circulation and encourage that gastric motility. So it's very helpful in winter when our metabolism naturally slows. And so I had someone ask me, when was the last time you drank ice water? I'd have to say, ice water has been about 15, 20 years. Like I don't drink cold, maybe room temperature, but in the winter, I go for warm or hot drinks, right? So I swap. So some of the things you can do is swap that iced latte for some warm tea, some ginger tea, some cinnamon spiced almond milk, or maybe that CCF tea that I talked about. And that's going to be in episode 31 that I talked about cumin, coriander, and fennel tea. So make sure to listen to that one if you haven't already listened, and how that can help with digestion and balance. And it's so wonderful. All right, so no more cold beverages, only warm, and then you put warming spices in there. So you can even take that. That's where things like wassail, that's an old time drink, came into practice, where they take apple juice and they put a whole bunch of these warming spices, delicious, in there and drink on that. How about chai? You have that warming, delicious drink. And I have some of these recipes in my program when you join my program. So they're available there, or you can find your own. And either way, it's wonderful. All right. The next principle is that we're going to talk about is principle 4. And so I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine. I was on a walk and I came up to her and I said, "Hey," and I saw her and I was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" She's like, "Good, but my husband is sick," and blah, blah, blah. And we started talking. And then I said, just out of curiosity, so she goes, "Oh, I got to go home and take care of him." I said, "Well, just out of curiosity, what are you going to do?" She goes, "Well, I've been feeding him, some smoothies to try to get some good nutrition in him." And so I asked her a little bit more about the cold. So you notice that we use the word cold because it's cold, it's damp, it's snotty, it's mucusy, it's all of these things. So we actually need to give him the opposite. So I talked to her, I said, "Go home," and I gave her how to make I gave her some fire cider, which is another video of mine that you can check out. And we are, okay, I got sidetracked. Sorry. I should put the numbers, but I do this off the top of my head and I can't remember the number, but I do have a fire cider um, podcast, and then you can also go into my resources, and I have some recipes there as well. So make sure to get the resources because there's a lot of resources that I give for free. All right, so she went home and she did this. She changed things and he got better really quickly. And so from then on she understood that a smoothie is not it's cold, it's damp, it seizes things up. And so I'm not saying smoothies are bad at all. In the summer, they're fantastic. I have smoothies all the time. All right. So, in winter, we benefit from a little more dietary fat for warmth. So, we want to gain about 5 pounds, 3 to 5 pounds. And this will keep us warm. It will keep us sleeping. It will keep us from having anxiety and depression. Right. So we have that 5 pound window. And we want to have steady energy from stews and porridges and all of those filled with those aromatic herbs that stimulate digestion, like ginger and garlic and black pepper and cinnamon and nutmeg, all of those amazing things. Now, there are a little bit of nuances with those without a gallbladder, is that we just need to make sure that we're spreading that fat out just a little bit if you're still struggling. I don't struggle really anymore with a lot of fat unless I have like crazy amounts. So um, I I've moved past that and healed my digestion. Um, but for some of you who are just starting out, you may want to just try a little bit at each meal, but we still want that fat. We still want that bile flowing, that liver working. So keep that going. So, like, what I'm thinking about when I say these practical winter meals is like a warm vegetable and lentil soup with like a little spoon of olive oil drizzled over it, or some cooked root vegetables, or something like ginger garlic broth, and a side of cooked grains or porridge. Like that would be amazing. So, for like protein, we're choosing those well-cooked legumes or even fish. Or, if you're a meat eater, I don't eat a lot of meat, except in the winter. I do bone broths. I do more meat because it's a heavier, I need more warming. And in the spring and summer, I eat more plant-based and less of those other things. So, um, there are three things that you can consider especially in the winter, to help you with your digestion. And that's adding digestive bitters. And in episode 3, I talk more about bitters. The cumin, coriander, and fennel tea, that's in episode 31, or digestive herbs, which is in episode 33. So I have all of these in a link for full script where I give everyone 10% off. So you can go over there and it gives you, it's all in one place. You don't have to buy everything. Um, but you can just click on the ones that you want, and it has a little bit of instruction there to break it down. So that might be helpful. So in winter, that fat provides that slow energy and supports the satiety. So when people are starting to eat a lot of sugary things and fatty things like that aren't great, if you make sure to nourish yourself first, then you tend to not overeat and not crave, and it brings that warmth. So um, we want to make sure that we are nourishing ourselves and not just gorging and saying, "Oh, I'm going to start over after January," because that's not exactly how the body works. Um, we know that adding ginger to soups and curries and teas will help support that gastric motility and heat us up, because sometimes for us women, we can have cold hands and cold feet. So sipping on something hot that helps with circulation like that, or, even I've even had black pepper tea, and I had to do that for one of my classes, is make this black pepper tea, and it heats you up. You can even put pinches of cayenne in it when your circulation is struggling. But I would avoid anything cold like smoothies and ice cream, and even things like when you put overnight oats in the refrigerator. Make nice warm oatmeal on the stove or in the crock pot. Um, Soups and stews that can kind of be simmering all day and get those nourishing minerals and flavors out of the soup is just wonderful. So I like to make a big pot of soup and people can eat it throughout the day and I don't feel like I'm cooking all day long either. All right, so let's see. The fifth, um, no, I want to talk about the fifth principle. So we're, like I said, we're covering 3 of 7 today. Principle 2, balanced hydration. Principle 4, food and fasting. So fasting, that's the principle inside the program. Fasting, this is not really the season for fasting. This is the season for grounding. And so that doesn't mean you can't, wait for the hunger cue or things like that. But be very careful about fasting, especially in winter. It can cause a little bit of imbalance. All right, the last principle we're going to talk about is called Principle 5, Rest and Movement. So this is where winter is the most wonderful time for sleeping more and prioritizing warm, steady movement rather than something like extreme cold exposure or heavy late night training. So sleep matters, especially in winter because of that circadian rhythm. The sun comes out later and it goes away earlier. And that's telling our bodies that we need more rest in the winter. And this helps regulate digestive hormones and better function in the gut, better microbiome health. And it also helps with hormones and like feeling that anxiety and depression that often comes seasonal affective disorder. And so prioritizing sleep is an act of seasonal listening. And in the summer, you can wake up with the sun and go to sleep with the sun, right? So, I mean, those are really long days. But in the winter, it's really not meant to be like that. And we need to adjust that. And with movement, people will still be, running and doing really hard, strenuous exercise where they might get more benefit out of brisk walks, gentle strength training, mobility sessions that are kind of slow and grounded, and kind of avoiding things like I love ice baths, but I only do ice baths in the summer, and in the winter I do saunas. So I can stay within the seasons even when I'm choosing my therapies. And I go into that also into my in the full program. So you want to avoid things that are shocking. And we want to kind of stay and rest and digest as much as we can. So, that 15-20 minute morning walk, we don't want cortisol spikes. We kind of want to stay relaxed. All right, so let's put it together. So we need to rest more. We need to move the body to keep it warm. We need to drink warm beverages, eat warming whole foods, and include small amounts of beneficial fats and digestive herbs. So we're going to use winter to repair your digestion, stabilize your meals, reduce that late night eating, get in bed, get cozy, get plenty of sleep. This is the time. So we feel so tired and worn out and just burnt out. And winter, I love winter because it's the time to come inward, to get cozy, to read good books, to watch cute movies. Um, and our period actually is also the winter time of our cycle. So we can double down when we're menstruating as well if you're still menstruating. All right. So the key to this season is gentle grounding and nourishing. So we're going to prioritize those nutrient dense, easy to digest meals, choose to cook them, keep them warm. And so I want to if you're really ready to nurture your digestive system and set yourself up for real lasting weight loss in the year ahead, I'm just going to warmly invite you to click in the link in the bio. So you can begin with do it yourself. Like if you're the type of person who's like, I can do this, I've got this, then go ahead and do it yourself. But I would always suggest finding someone who will support you. So if that's me, great. If it's a friend, fabulous. But we all deserve to feel connected and encouraged. So in the gospel, we have rhythms, we have the Sabbath day, we have seasons, we have divine order. And so our bodies are made the same way. This winter, instead of worrying with your biology and trying harder to do more, what you can do is relax and kind of turn inward and start to really heal. So remember the deer story. Loving intentions can still be harmful if mistimed. So let the seasons do its work for you. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope that your winter is restful, warming, and full of hope. And until next time, happy digesting.
If this episode encouraged you or offered practical insight, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Leaving a review, subscribing, and sharing with even one friend helps more people discover this message, and Jami is truly grateful for your support. Be sure to check the show notes for free downloads, helpful resources, and a link to join Jami's private Facebook group for extra support and community that blends practical health with biblical truth. Just a reminder, Jami isn't a doctor, so always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health plan.